Chapter 1. The Wall. The room smells like pine and cold linen, and I tell myself I can breathe again. I set my bag down by the door and don't turn on the overhead light. Just the small lamp on the nightstand. The kind of light that doesn't ask anything of you. Black Pine Retreat sits at the edge of a ridge in Gangwon. And even the air is different here. Sharper, colder, like the mountains filtered out everything that didn't belong. That's why I came. I needed silence that wasn't just the absence of sound, but the presence of something heavier. Something real. I needed to disappear for a while. I cross the room and run my fingertips along the far wall. The wood is dark, rough-grained, the kind that absorbs heat and holds it. I press my palm flat against it and close my eyes. Then I open them. There are grooves in the wood. Deep ones, recent ones. My fingers find them before my eyes do. Seo Jin. And below that, a date. Tomorrow's date. I don't pull my hand back. I don't make a sound. I stand there and make myself breathe. 1, 2, 3, before I do anything else. Because if I panic, I'm useless to myself, and I have learned the hard way that being useless to yourself is the most dangerous thing you can be. The grooves are fresh. The wood inside is a lighter color than the surface, pale and clean, the way a wound looks before it starts to close. Someone did this tonight. I take out my phone and photograph the wall. Every angle. Then I check the closet, the bathroom, the space behind the door. Empty. The window latch is engaged. I look for anything else that's been moved or touched. That's when I notice the pillow. It's not the pillow itself. It's the edge of something white, just barely visible, like it slid there on its own and is waiting to be found. I use the corner of my sleeve to pull it free. A Polaroid. Me, asleep in this bed. Mouth slightly open, hair fanned against the pillow. Taken from above, from a steep angle, like whoever held the camera was standing right beside me, looking down. My stomach drops so fast it takes my breath with it. I'm in that photo. In this room. In this bed. And the photo is still slightly cool to the touch, like the chemicals haven't fully finished settling. I photograph the Polaroid with my phone. I set it back where it was, carefully, without touching the surface. Evidence is only useful if you don't ruin it. Then someone knocks, 3 knocks. Even, unhurried. I pocket my phone and open the door. The man in the hallway is tall, wide at the shoulders, narrow at the jaw. Dark hair, a little longer than practical, pushed back from a face that looks like it has spent years not showing what it knows. He's wearing a black quilted jacket and work boots that have seen actual work. His hands hang at his sides, and I notice them the way I notice everything that could be a threat or a resource. Large, scarred at the knuckles, steady. He says his name is Dae Hyun. He's the caretaker. He does nightly checks. His voice is low and unhurried, the kind of voice that doesn't need to prove anything. I step back and let him in without saying anything, and then I show him the wall. He moves to it immediately, doesn't touch it. Studies it the same way I did, the depth of the grooves, the color of the exposed wood. His face doesn't change, but something shifts in the set of his shoulders, a tensing that he controls before it becomes visible. "You should move rooms," he says. "No," I say. He looks at me then. Really looks like he's reading something he didn't expect to find. "The evidence is here," I tell him. I stay with it. He says nothing for a moment. Then he moves to the window and checks the latch twice, testing it with pressure. He checks the closet again even though I already did. He opens the bathroom door and stands in the frame for a second before closing it. He's not doing it for show. He's doing it because it needs to be done. When he comes back to the doorway, he stays there. Just slightly inside the threshold, as if he made a decision about how much space to occupy and intends to keep it. "I'll be on the perimeter tonight," he says. I nod. He doesn't leave immediately. He stands there for a moment longer than necessary, and I understand, without him saying it, that he is waiting to see if I'll ask him to stay. I don't. He goes. I turn the lock. I lean my back against the door and listen to my own breathing until it evens out. And then I hear it. Footsteps. Above me. slow and deliberate, moving across the ceiling in the exact direction of the bed. Chapter 2, Closed Trails. The fog comes in thick before sunrise and stays. I'm up before dawn, which is not unusual for me, and I put on my coat and boots without turning on the heating. I like the cold when I choose it. It's when it chooses me that I resent it. The trails are marked on a laminated map posted near the main entrance, 12 routes in total, ranging from an easy loop around the lower ridge to a full-day climb that requires registration. I'm not looking for a full-day climb. I'm looking for 30 minutes of moving through quiet trees, the kind of silence that has texture to it. When I push open the side door, he's already there. Dae Hyun is standing at the first trail marker, hands in his pockets, looking up the ridge as if he heard something in the tree line and is giving it time to reveal itself. He doesn't startle when I come out. He doesn't look surprised to see me. Most of the trail markers have red tape across them. Climate conditions, he says before I ask. I look up. The fog is thick, yes, but it's not moving. There's no wind. The pine tops are still. The closures, I say, are they about the people who went missing last month? He doesn't answer right away. That tells me what I need to know. We walk the perimeter path together, the only route left open, a gravel track that circles the main building and ends at a stone bench overlook. He sets his pace to mine without making it obvious, and I notice that he keeps exactly 3 steps of distance. Not 2, not 4. Like he measured it once and decided. An older woman named Mrs. Han is out walking her small dog along the same path. She stops to speak to Dae Hyun, and I step to the side to give them space. But she speaks loudly, the way people do when they've decided the whole world is part of the conversation. I saw someone in the trees last night, she says. Standing still, just looking at the building. She doesn't say which trees. She doesn't say what time. Dae Hyun thanks her and says he'll look into it. He says it the way someone says it when they already know. We keep walking. At the far end of the path, where the gravel ends and the ridge begins its rise into fog, he stops. There's a gap between 2 pines, narrow and unlisted. Not a trail but a direction. He steps through and I follow without asking, because whatever's on the other side of that gap, I want to see it. The trees open onto a shelf of flat rock above a drop. The valley floor invisible beneath the fog. It's like standing at the edge of a cloud. The sound has a different quality here, absorptive, like the air is padded. He doesn't say anything, he just points into the mist below. I stand next to him and look. It's the most intimate thing that has happened to me in months, this looking at invisible things together. Why did you stay here, I ask. At this retreat. It's my responsibility, he says. It's not a full answer, I can tell he knows that. After a moment, he reaches into his jacket pocket and checks his phone, which buzzes twice. He steps away and speaks into it quietly, in short syllables I can't assemble into meaning. When he turns back, I'm still looking at the fog. He pockets the phone without explanation. I don't ask. We walk back in silence, and the silence is almost easy, which is the unsettling part. When we reach the main entrance, I let him go first. I stop at the window of the common room, and the morning light catches something on the inside of the frame. I press closer to the glass. A symbol, carved into the wood of the frame. Small, maybe 3 centimeters across. A circle with 3 inward-facing lines, like the spokes of something unfinished. I photograph it. I photograph the whole frame for context. Inside, alone, I open a search on my phone. I type in a description, then try an image search. I check 4 databases before I accept the result. Nothing. No match, no record, no reference. I look at the symbol again. It's not old. The pale wood inside the groove is the same fresh color as the letters carved into my wall. Chapter 3. The Investigator. He arrives at 2 in the afternoon, and I see him from the upstairs hallway window before he gets out of the car. The car is dark, unmarked, angled into the gravel lot with the precision of someone who parks as an act of information gathering. The man who steps out is lean and deliberate in his movements. Gray overcoat, dark scarf, a document bag held with a grip that suggests he's carried it a long time. His head turns as he takes in the building, the tree line, the ridge, in the way of someone who is building a map, not admiring a view. His name is Hwan. He introduces himself to the group in the common room with formal economy, criminal investigator, here to follow up on the disappearances of 2 guests from the previous month. He asks to speak with everyone individually. When my turn comes, he waits for me to sit down first. He's different with me than with the others. I can tell by the way he holds the pause before his first question. He's deciding how much the person in front of him can handle. With me, he decides quickly, and then he doesn't soften anything. I tell him about the wall, the date, the Polaroid. He doesn't look surprised. His expression stays level, but something behind his eyes goes very still, the stillness of someone adding information to a structure they've already been building. I show him the photos on my phone. He studies them. Then he says, "When did you take these?" "Within 2 minutes of finding them. Before I touched anything." He looks at me again, that same recalculating stillness. "Can I see the room?" I say yes. We go upstairs. Dae Hyun is in the hallway when we get there. I didn't hear him coming. He's just there, and the way Hwan's posture shifts, not aggressive, just repositioned, the way you adjust when you walk into a room and find someone already in it, tells me this isn't the first time they've been in the same space. The look that passes between them takes half a second too long. In the room, Hwan moves methodically. He checks the wall, photographs it with his own camera, measures the groove depth with the edge of a card from his wallet. He goes to the window. He leans out. He looks down. "There's a boot print on the ledge outside," he says, "and a scratch pattern on the sill." Dae Hyun from behind me. "I already checked the window." Hwan, without turning. "I'm sure you did." Dae Hyun says nothing. The tension between them has the quality of old scar tissue, not new damage, not fresh conflict, but something healed wrong that still pulls when the weather changes. Hwan comes back inside and opens his document bag. He takes out a photograph in a plastic sleeve and holds it toward me. A man, mid-40s, North Face jacket, hiking poles, a friendly, broad face. Standing in front of what looks like the retreat entrance. "His name was Park Jun-ho," Hwan says. "He disappeared 27 days ago. Do you recognize him?" And the thing is, I do. "He was here when I arrived," I say. "In the parking lot. He said something to me." "What did he say?" I look at the photo again. I can hear his voice, quiet, a little hoarse, like someone who'd been outside for a long time. He asked if I'd heard it too. Hwan is very still. "Heard what?" I ask, because I didn't understand it then and I need to understand it now. "That," Hwan says carefully, "is what I'm trying to find out." He puts the photo away. He closes his document bag. He excuses himself to make calls and leaves me in the room with Dae Hyun. The door is barely closed when Dae Hyun speaks. Not loud, not urgent, just a statement delivered like a fact. "Don't trust what he shows you." I turn to look at him. "Why?" He looks at the closed door. Then back at me. He says nothing, and the nothing is enormous. Chapter 4. Inner Fog. The power flickers twice before 9. The common room has the particular energy of people who are pretending not to be worried. A retired couple from Busan, Mrs. Han with her dog, 2 university students who arrived yesterday, and 2 of us who are not pretending. Hwan has spread a physical map of the retreat grounds on the long table. It's annotated in handwriting so small it might as well be encryption. Dae Hyun stands on the other side of the table with his arms crossed, and the space between them has the quality of a border. I sit down and look at the map. "The pattern from the previous disappearances isn't random," Hwan says. He traces a route with his pen without touching the paper. Both guests received escalating contact before they vanished. Small disruptions at first, then more direct. Then gone. "How long between first sign and disappearance?" I ask. "For the first guest, 6 days. For the second, 4. I've been here one day, I say. I know. Dae Hyun says something in a low voice about moving me to a more secure section of the building. Hwan says the more secure option is leaving entirely. I let them finish. Or, I say, I stay where I am and we use the pattern to our advantage. They both look at me. I have a recorder, high sensitivity, directional. I'll plant it in the corridor and the stairwell. If someone moves through the building tonight, we'll have audio. I look at the map, and I can position one outside the window of my room. If someone tries to access the ledge again, we'll have that too. Dae Hyun's jaw shifts. Hwan's head tilts at a precise angle. You're describing yourself as bait, Hwan says. I'm describing myself as already bait, I say. I'm suggesting we do something useful about it. Silence. Then Hwan says, agreed. Dae Hyun says nothing, which is a different kind of agreement. We spend an hour positioning the equipment. I know the recorders well. They're the same ones I use for fieldwork, and I show both men where the sensitivity picks up and where it drops. Hwan takes notes. Dae Hyun watches and remembers without writing anything down. At some point, we end up standing close together in the narrow hallway near the east corridor, the three of us in a space built for one. I feel the heat of both of them, which is absurd, and I focus on the recorder placement instead. Then the power goes out completely. Full dark. I don't move, neither do they. In the silence, I can hear the pine trees outside shifting against the building, and the distant sound of the ridge wind starting up. Something presses against my shoulder, steady and warm. He says, very quietly, close to my ear, "Can I?" The question doesn't make immediate sense, and then it does. It's his hand on my shoulder, holding me in place so I don't move toward the sound by reflex. Not gripping, asking. I say, yes. The hand stays where it is, just present, just there. And when the power comes back 3 minutes later, he steps back before I can turn around. We don't talk about it. At midnight, I do a check of the recorders alone. I walk the corridor with my phone screen dimmed, and everything is where I left it, and everything is quiet. Except outside the door to my room, on the floor, is the flashlight I left on the table inside. I pick it up. Under it is a piece of paper, folded once. I open it. 6 words, printed in neat, small capitals. You shouldn't have come back. I photograph it. I fold it back exactly as it was. I carry it to Hwan's room and knock until he opens the door. He reads it. He hands it to Dae Hyun without speaking. Dae Hyun's hands are still when he holds it, but I am watching his eyes, and he meets mine over the edge of the paper, and what I see there is not surprise. Not the smallest trace of it. Chapter 5, Threshold. Hwan's room is smaller than mine and twice as organized. We sit on opposite sides of his low table with his laptop open between us, the audio feed from the corridor recorders running in a slow waveform across the screen. It's almost midnight. The building has gone quiet in that specific way old structures go quiet, not empty, just settled. He pours 2 cups of tea without asking if I want any. I take mine and don't comment on it. We talk about the case the way he must talk about all his cases, which is to say with precision and no performance. He tells me about the forensic findings from the first disappearance, the things that got buried in the report because they didn't fit neatly into a narrative anyone wanted to write. He speaks like someone who has decided to trust me with information that cost him something to find. At some point he starts to say something about himself. There's something I should... He stops. Picks up his cup. Puts it down. The investigation has been complicated by certain local jurisdictional issues. It's not what he was going to say. I know because the sentence started in a different place and ended somewhere safe. I let it go. The East Corridor recorder fires at 12:43, a sustained vibration in the waveform, not wind, not the building's own movement. Something crossing the trigger zone. I'm on my feet before the alert tone sounds. The plan. I get Dae Hyun. Hwan takes the corridor. I notice I assigned myself the one that requires moving through the dark, and trust both of them with the rest. I take the back stair. Dae Hyun is already at the end of the East Corridor when I get there, which means he heard it without the alarm. which means I'll think about that later. A figure in the far doorway, hooded, quick, gone before Juan's flashlight beam sweeps around the corner. The side exit slams, we follow. The figure crosses the lower trailhead and disappears into the tree line, and Dae Hyun moves faster than the terrain should allow. I lose him in the dark for 30 seconds, and then I find him standing at the edge of the pines with his arm out, stopping me before I step into the shadow. There's a sound like something, not quite footsteps, not quite the wind, retreating further up the ridge. Gone. We go back inside. In the kitchen, under the fluorescent lights, I see the cut on Dae Hyun's forearm for the first time. A clean horizontal line, 4 centimeters, not deep but real, bleeding through the sleeve of his jacket. Sit down, I tell him. He sits. Not because he has to, because I said it with the tone that doesn't expect pushback. I find the first aid kit in the cabinet below the sink. I clean the cut, which he accepts without comment, without flinching, watching my hands like someone who has learned to be careful with his own attention. Hold still, I say, pressing the gauze. I am still, he says. The cut needs the gauze secured. I need both hands to position the tape. Can you hold this? I say, and he understands I mean the gauze. He reaches up to hold it, and our hands overlap for 2 seconds. Then, can I hold your hand for a moment? Just to stabilize. It is the simplest request anyone has ever made of me. Completely practical. I extend my hand and he holds it firmly around the wrist, while I work the tape with my other hand. And the steadiness of his grip is so entirely different from being held that I don't know what to do with the distinction. Juan comes in from the back entrance. He's holding something in a gloved hand, small, roughly square, dark leather with markings on the surface. He sets it on the table between us. I look at it, then at Juan, then at Dae Hyun. The expression on Juan's face is what I'd call professionally neutral, which I've come to understand means the opposite. Dae Hyun looks at the leather object and does not move. I ask, "What is that?" Juan says, "Nothing that concerns you." It is the first lie he has told me. I know it is a lie because his eyes don't move when he says it. No one's eyes are that still by accident. Chapter 6. Frequency. I expect Juan to suggest I leave in the morning. He does within 5 minutes of sunrise, with the same measured tone he uses for everything, and the same underlying certainty that he is right. Dae Hyun, on the other side of the kitchen, does not argue. He's repairing the latch on the utility window, a task no one asked him to do, which he started approximately when the conversation began. I tell Juan no, and then he tells me about the 2 missing guests. Park Jun-ho, the man from the photo, was a sound researcher. Independent contractor, academic affiliation lapsed, focused on low-frequency environmental acoustics. He had filed a research permit with the Provincial Parks Authority for a 3-week recording project in the pine forests of this specific ridge. The second missing guest, a woman named Oh Yuri, was a doctoral candidate in acoustic ecology. Her field notes recovered from her room referenced the same phenomenon, a sub-bass register present in the forest at night, consistent, non-meteorological, and unlike anything in the regional database. I set down my cup. I study sound for a living. I design it, I analyze it, I record it. I came to Black Pine Retreat specifically because a colleague mentioned the acoustic properties of this particular ridge, the density of the trees, the way the mountain creates a natural amphitheater effect, the famous and unusual depth of the night silence. I had filed the same permit. Juan watches me work through this. Someone has been targeting people with that permit, he says. I am in this room because someone knew I was coming before I arrived. I go upstairs without telling either of them where I'm going. I sit on the edge of my bed and open my recorder. I have a file from my first night, the one I set running before I found the wall, out of habit, because I always start recording when I arrive somewhere new. I let it run. Wind, building sounds. My own breathing, which is steadier than I remember. 47 minutes in, it appears. A frequency below the threshold of normal conscious hearing, but not below mine. Low and sustained and impossibly even, like a tone rather than an ambient sound. Like something producing it on purpose. I go back downstairs. Dae Hyun is alone in the kitchen. Hwan is outside making calls. I stand in front of Dae Hyun without saying anything and hold out one wireless earbud. He looks at it, then at me. Just listen, I say. He takes the earbud and puts it in. I navigate to minute 47 and press play. His face goes very still. Not blank. Still, the way water goes still, just before something moves beneath it. Every expression he has is in his hands, and I watch his hands, which have stopped moving entirely. 20 seconds of it. I stop the file. You recognize it, I say. He takes out the earbud. He sets it on the counter between us with the same care someone would use with something breakable. He looks at me for a long moment. Delete that file, he says. His voice is quiet. Not threatening, something between a request and a warning. Why? He doesn't answer. I pick up the earbud. I put it in my pocket. I don't delete the file. He watches me do this and doesn't stop me and doesn't say another word, and somehow that is worse than any argument he could have made. When Hwan passes me in the corridor an hour later, he says, "I'd tell you if I knew." And for a single, devastating second, I almost believe him. I go back to my room. I open my laptop. I run the frequency through my analysis software, extracting the waveform, isolating the register. Then I open the folder of test files I recorded in the common room on my first day, before any of this basic room tone tests, the kind I do everywhere I go. I pull up the file from the session by the window. At the 43-minute mark of that file, sitting at a corner table is a low, sustained tone. Identical. Dae Hyun had been sitting 3 meters away. I close the laptop. I sit in the dark for a while, listening to the pine trees press against the window. Then I type the circle symbol into a Korean folklore database I subscribe to for field research. 3 inward lines inside a ring. The result loads slowly. Territory marking, pre-modern. Used by certain regional groups, the database uses the word clan to indicate claimed ground, contested boundary, or rite of passage. Subclassification. Used specifically in disputes between 2 opposing clans over shared range. I read that sentence 3 times. Chapter 7. The Fall. In the morning, Hwan has the look of someone who made a decision overnight and is committed to living with it. I test him immediately. Not cruelly. Just directly the way I do everything. When did you and Dae Hyun agree on the surveillance rotation? I ask. He takes a half-second too long. We divided the perimeter watch, he says. It was a practical decision. Who made it? We both. When I was asleep, I say. You planned how to protect me without asking me what I needed protected from. You made operational decisions about my safety without me in the room. Hwan sets down his cup. It was the most efficient way to. More efficient for you, I say. More comfortable, less complicated. Dae Hyun comes in from the corridor and reads the room in under a second. I look at him. You too. He doesn't deny it. To his credit, he doesn't even try. Hwan explains it the way men explain things when they know they're in the wrong, and have decided rational clarity is the next best option. Calmly, completely, and just slightly too late. They had divided the building into quadrants. They had rotated watch in 4-hour shifts. They had coordinated via a messaging thread I had no access to. They had made 3 separate decisions about what to tell me and when. I listened to all of it. Then I go upstairs, put on my coat, put the recorder in my pocket, and take my flashlight and my boots, and I leave through the back door. The East Trail, the one Dae Hyun specifically never led me on, rises steeply through black pines before leveling into a service road that loops behind the ridge. I've memorized the retreat map and I know where this trail goes. It goes past the old maintenance cabin, listed in the original property documents, but removed from the current map. I want to know why. The cabin is small, wood-framed, half consumed by the tree line on 3 sides. The door is not locked, it's slightly open, which is different from unlocked, which is worse. I push it with my shoulder and let it swing. A man is inside. He's sitting on the floor with his back against the far wall, knees pulled up, eyes fixed on the door with the frantic focus of someone who has been waiting a long time for the thing he's afraid of. He's in his 40s, rough outdoor clothes, hollow-cheeked. He's not the stalker I imagined. He's frightened. His name, I learn in the next 10 minutes, is Park Dae Hyun. He is the younger brother of Park Jun-ho, the first missing guest. He came here, he says, to find what happened to his brother. He found signs instead. Signs that the mountain had been marked, that two factions of something ancient were competing for it, and that his brother had wandered into the boundary zone. He believes the mountain took his brother. I stand very still while he says this. He has been leaving me the signs, he says. The carved name, the date, the Polaroid, all of it. Not to harm me, to warn me. He found the previous guest's research and searched the permit database, and found my name and came here before I did and waited. He advances toward me suddenly, with the urgency of someone whose logic has come loose from its moorings. I step back. I raise my flashlight. I use my voice, low and sharp and carrying, and the sound stops him for 1 second, 2 seconds, long enough. Dae Hyun comes through the door. Not through the window, not from behind the cabin. Through the door, but from a direction that should have required crossing open ground, I would have seen and heard. He doesn't touch Park Dae Hyun gently. He doesn't need to. The man collapses rather than resists, folding at the knees, and Dae Hyun guides him down the wall with his forearm across the man's chest until he's seated again. Hwan arrives 37 seconds later, slightly out of breath, from the trail. He sees Dae Hyun. He sees the man on the floor. He says nothing, and his nothing is the loudest thing in the room. Park Dae Hyun looks between the two of them and says, with a clarity that sounds expensive, "You have no right here. This mountain belongs to the old ones." The air goes strange. Dae Hyun and Hwan both go rigid at the same moment in the same specific way, not startled, but caught. I file that observation quietly and carefully, the way I file all the things I don't yet understand. Back at the retreat, after the calls are made and the reports are filed, I sit alone on the back steps for a long time. Then I go to my room and open the recording from the night I cared for Dae Hyun's cut. I let it run, background noise. The sound of the first aid kit. My own voice, his, at the 22-minute mark, underneath all of it, low and steady and unmistakable. The same frequency, identical to the file from the forest. Identical to the common room recording. Not the mountain. Him. Chapter 8, Black Pines. Hwan leaves at 9 in the morning. He stands in the gravel lot with his document bag and his car keys, and he tells me what he can tell me, which is most of it. Park Dae Hyun is in custody. The case is being transferred to the regional unit. His official involvement ends here. He tells me where the nearest emergency contact is, 2 villages down the ridge road. He tells me the transit schedule. He tells me 3 practical things I didn't ask for, and 1 thing I did, which is whether the previous guests could still be found. "I don't know," he says. "I haven't stopped looking." I believe him about that part. Before he opens the car door, he sets something on the hood, his card, and underneath it a folded note. He doesn't make a production of it. In his careful handwriting, small as encryption. "When you come to the city, call before. Not for duty." I fold it and put it in my coat pocket. I watch his car find the ridge road and hold its line until the fog takes it. Then I go back inside. Dae Hyun is in the common room. Not doing anything, just present, the way he often is, existing in the space as if he's part of its structure. I sit across from him. "What are you not going to tell me?" I ask. He doesn't pretend to misunderstand. "There are things," he says, "that aren't mine to give." "But?" He looks at me with those tired dark eyes that have seen a longer history than 40 years should hold. "What I am in relation to you," he says, choosing each word with the care of someone who knows the difference between a door and a wall. "That's mine. And I would rather you know that than not know it." It is the longest sentence he's ever said to me. It takes me a moment to absorb it. I go upstairs and start packing my bag. I fold the 2 thermal shirts. I put the recorder in its case. I wind the cables. I pause on the recorder. I sit on the edge of the bed and open the first night's file one more time. I don't go to minute 47. I let it run from the beginning. The sound of the room, the cold, the pine trees pressing at the window. I press the earbud in. I close my eyes. And there it is. Not at 47 minutes. Sooner, much sooner. Within the first 4 minutes of the recording, before I found the wall, before any of it started, a low, sustained tone, faint enough that I missed it the first 3 times I listened. It was there from the moment I arrived. I open my laptop and load the room tone file from the common room. I run the frequency isolation. There it is again. Same register, same signature, sitting underneath the ambient sound like a root note under a chord. I go back further in the file. Earlier in the day. Before Dae Hyun walked into the room. The tone predates his entry, not him. The mountain, or something older than the mountain. I sit with that for a long time. I'm not afraid, which is interesting. I'm curious, which is something else entirely. The bag is mostly packed. My coat is on the chair. All I need to do is put on my boots and go downstairs and out the front door and call the car I prescheduled for this morning. I take out my boots. I hold them in my lap. I think about the common room recording, the circle symbol, the folklore database, the 2 rival clans it referenced. I think about how Dae Hyun arrived at that cabin from a direction that defied the terrain. I think about the frequency in his presence and the frequency without him, and the fact that I am a person who records the world in order to understand it, and I am not afraid of what I don't understand. I think I want to know. Not because I need to be safe. I am already as safe as I'm capable of making myself. Because I want it. Because for the first time in longer than I can measure, I am in a place that is full of questions I actually care about asking. I put my boots down. I stand and cross to the window. I reach for the latch, which I've kept locked since the first night, and I turn it and push the window open. The pine air comes in, cold and dark and resinous, moving through the room like something that has been waiting on the threshold for days. I breathe it in and do not close the window. Downstairs I can hear him. Not footsteps. Not voice. Just a presence, an atmospheric fact, the way a low note sits under a piece of music and holds everything else in place. I pull my coat back on. I pick up the recorder. I start a new file.